Hello, everybody. This is Janae Smee once again with the Relentless Phoenix podcast. I hope you are enjoying your day, your week, wherever you are. I hope you are treating yourself just as well as you want others to treat you. Today, we have a very, very special guest today. Her name is
Andrea.
Andrea. Also, I got that correct. Yes. She definitely has a great message for us. So take it away, Andrea. Tell a little about you and what message you bring or your story.
Sure, Yane. I just want to say first, thank you for having me here. This is such a great concept and a really good audience. I absolutely love working with women over 30. I feel like for me, 30 was kind of like hitting my stride. So I feel like it's just a really great place to start. And I am a transformational leadership coach, and my passion is working with women, helping them understand how to think critically, create imaginatively, and lead effectively. And I do that through kind of working with them in 3 areas. Number 1, knowing themselves, which is our core values, and learning how to communicate. I'm a Maxwell Leadership DISC consultant, speaker, trainer, coach. So it's understanding our DISC communication wiring. And then that third piece of my framework is how we live it out, which is what I call intentional optimism. And that's a 6-tenet personal growth lifestyle that really developed out of the grief that came from losing my mother when I was 50. So I'm not in the 30s category anymore, but I feel like it. And, but those are the reason why I got to this place is because of all the things that I've been through. And I just wanted to share that one of the pieces that I put in my bio that a lot of people will just read on the air, and it always feels really awkward when they do it. So thank you for not doing it. But one of the things I say is that I had to learn that resilience has to be earned. And the reason why I say it that way is because resilience by definition is something that you earn by learning how to fall and get back up. It's building up muscles. If you've ever started out at the gym, you know that, or like I do Apple Fitness, and anytime I try a new workout, it's like, oh, those muscles are sore, right? So you have to start out where you can do it that's a little bit easier. We start with small weights and we work up to heavy weights. And so everything that we go through builds resilience. And anything that I do with my clients or anything that I teach on a podcast interview or through my courses or my coaching is all stuff that I've been through. I am not one of those people that can teach stuff that I haven't experienced. It has to be things I've experienced. And so my story contains a lot of things that, you don't realize the story that you have until you start telling it to people. And then you say, oh, wow, I actually kind of have overcome some things, but I'm willing to stop there if you like, if you have any questions, or I can just keep going.
Yeah, no. So taking back to you creating your business, what was that like for you? Why did you start it? Was there a need that you saw in order to start this?
Great question. I was 25 years in higher education, and I worked for some really great universities. I worked for Johns Hopkins University. I worked for the University of Virginia, and I did this in schools of medicine. So I started in the oncology center at Johns Hopkins. I moved to I did some administrative work, but then I moved back into the School of Medicine in the University of Virginia, and I did administration, research administration, operations. And that's a fancy way of saying I managed people, I managed budgets, I made sure we got grants from the NIH, and I made sure that doctors had what they needed. So I was on the university side, and I had a lot of people that I managed, right? And if anybody listening has ever been in a management kind of position, you think that's where you want to go. And then you get there and you realize, number 1, nobody trained you to do it. Number 2, the people underneath you, they don't really want you to build them up to grow. They just want to be able to punch their time card. Now, I'm painting a bleak picture, right? It's like, it's not all like this. There are some amazing teams out there and amazing organizations to work for. But when you're in a college town, that's the biggest employer in town, and people are there literally because that's the best place to work. Now, I did have some people who really wanted to grow and really did well. And because I would hire them as an administrative assistant, Shanae, and I would say things like, I don't want this to be a landing pad for you. Excuse me. I say, I want this to be a launch pad for you. And some of them would take that and go, oh, let's figure out how to get me to the next step. And the next step was never in my department, because that's just not how it works. You got to move around, right? Because it's a big university. And then I'd have one or two. I had one who, this young man, he thought I was trying to get rid of him. And that's not what it was. I was trying to help him grow and to help him grow bigger. And once I actually left the university, he actually has grown and done well. And I think some of that is because of the things I pushed him to learn and do. And for him, it was to prove to me that he could do things. But I hit a stage where I realized I had responsibility without authority. I realized I was bored. I could do my job, both hands tied behind my back 2 days a week, which really that didn't do wonders for my work ethic, right? I thought, I want to feel fulfilled in the work that I do, but I also realized I don't like to manage. I don't want to keep the status quo. I want to stir the pot and to make it bigger. I want to see people flourish. I want to see everyone around me do really well, which means the organization does really well. And that doesn't always go over well in a really large organization unless you're in the exact right place. And so a friend of mine introduced me to John Maxwell and the Maxwell leadership team and said, you would do great. The whole point of doing leadership consulting and training is to pull out of the actual day-to-day management and go in as a consultant and actually train people who are interested in doing leadership. And I said, really? There's like a thing you can do? And I was just flabbergasted. I said, that sounds amazing. And so 5 years ago, I got certified, and let's see, next August, it'll be 3 years since I left the university. And I'm not going to lie, that wasn't the easiest thing to do. Like I said, I'm no longer in my 30s. I'm currently 57. So, that was not something that was an easy choice because of benefits and salary. But let me tell you, it has made all the difference in my heart and in the way I flourish. It has caused me to grow personally. And my goal is to reach behind for the next group coming to help pull them along, because my dream is to actually help women do this a lot faster than I did. Realize this. Like I said, I work with a lot of women in their mid 30s because they've hit that point. And I hit that point when I was in my mid 30s, but I just looked for a bigger job. I didn't have anybody telling me I could do something different. So that is my dream, is to help other women realize what I realized sooner. And if that means a different or bigger job for you, that's great. Not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. But if that means going out on your own in your mid 30s or early 30s, it's a lot easier to do than in your early 50s. So that's kind of how I got started, and a little bit of the struggles and the rewards that have gone along with it.
Yeah, but first off, I want to commend you. That's really great. And just taking that leap and wanting that change, because that part of it all, making a choice of there needs to be a change, that's the hardest part of it all, coming to that realization. So what for you made it decisive? Like, I know that a friend of yours introduced you to to that coaching, but
Maxwell?
Maxwell, yeah. But for you, what was like, you know what, it needs to be today, not tomorrow, but today? What was that inside for you like?
Well, I'm a little bit of a COVID story. I was managing 20 people when COVID hit. And because I'm one of those, like I said, I was bored. So I had all the like laptop computers left and everything. I'd saved everything. Anytime somebody needed to upgrade, I saved everything. And I was in the largest department in this University of Virginia other than facilities management. But I was just one division. But I was the first to move all of my people off grounds. And so I did that. We moved off grounds. And for me, it was freeing to be able to work from home. And I created my own little work area here. This is what I created when that happened. And I started running everything from Zoom. And I decided I was going to make it just as efficient as if we had been in the office. We were already doing a couple of us a few days a week at home, that kind of thing, hybrid work. And so we did the entire year, but then June of, what was it, 2021, 2020, what did I say, 3 years ago? Anyway, I went on vacation, and they were pulling some people back in, but I had already agreed to stay permanently off grounds or off campus. And when I was on vacation, I got notice from my boss that I needed to come back and be full-time on in the office again. And it was such a surprise, and it was handled so poorly that it just really pushed me over the edge. And I know for a fact that it wasn't necessarily my boss driving all of that. It was in some organizations and in some industries, they are less prone to tolerate hybrid working, the medical profession is one of those. And even for those of us who were not clinical, because a lot of times they just don't have the ability to think, they can't think outside of, if I can't see you, you're not working. And so, I literally had given up my office for a doctor. I had no place to sit. And so when I got back from vacation, I found out that I told my husband, I said, I had a Zoom call with my boss, and I said, if I don't go in, I think I might lose my job. And so I went in, and on vacation, I told my husband, I said, I'm going to quit. And I didn't go in and quit the first day. I kind of made a plan. I was already on an exit strategy. Because I knew I had found so much fulfillment in doing leadership training, and I was trying to do some of it there. And there were some people that were very open to it, but it's hard to make inroads where you already work when you're doing something different, unless it's such a really amazing environment. And I just hit the place where I was like, I can't do this. And within 2 weeks of coming back from vacation, I turned in my notice. My boss was like, he couldn't breathe. And because like I said, I could do my job with my hands tied behind my back. I ran the show. He didn't have to do anything. I was operations. He was administration. All he did was like the yearly budgets. And he was free to do there was some expansion that was going on clinically and that kind of stuff. So he was able to do the really high level. I ran everything else. And so it was a bit of a shock. But when I say I was fed up, I was literally fed up. This was on the heels of having received a promotion with no raise, those kinds of things. And I'm still surprised at how poorly women are treated sometimes in the workplace, and how much, and this is, again, I don't have anything against the university. It's a great place, but it's huge. And it's really difficult in a really large organization to not see the humans as numbers. And, full-time equivalents, FTEs. And so I even had conversations with the COO of our department. And I was like, you can't see them on the spreadsheet you can't see humans as a liability. You can't see them as an expense. You have to see them as an investment. And they just couldn't even switch that on the spreadsheet. So when you can't do that because of the way your organization is structured, that violated what I came to understand to be my core values. And when I could see why I was so miserable, I needed to get out. And I'm not going to say it was the easiest decision in the world, but once it was made, there was no turning back. I mean, really, no turn. Anybody who's really left a job knows that you hit that point and there's no turning back. I didn't want to do it in a way that would burn a bridge. And I also didn't want to get fired. So I knew that if I stayed much longer, my attitude would have really suffered greatly. And so I decided it was time to go, even if I wasn't financially ready on my own exit plan.
I would say I felt the same way, because my background is social work, and it didn't feel like I was helping a human, right? It just felt like a human was a number on a piece of paper, or you pass the human off a referral, and you don't really know what the outcome of helping them, and so it left a dry taste in my mouth when it came to the similar situation that you're talking about. So I went to coaching. Kind of felt like it was more of a personal touch to this work feeling. That's for me. Not for sure about you, but that's what that came down with me when it came to coaching. So you say you're a transformational coach, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's what.
Yes. What? Who do you help? What do you help with? In particular, with a transformational.
Well, by transformational, I mentioned a little while ago. Pardon me. I mentioned a little while ago that I felt like I had responsibility with no authority, and that I was burnout, and that I was bored. I could do my job with my hands tied behind my back. I felt unbalanced. Like, even though I was only at work 32 to 40 hours a week. I wasn't doing extra. I just felt like it was draining me. And so I never felt like I had the right amount for my home. So I have come to call that kind of state that you're in as a disempowered leader. And this is kind of the result of acting within someone else's assumptions and beliefs, or even principles and priorities rather than your own. And so when I work with people, I work to help them transform themselves into impactful or magnetic leaders. So we move from imitating other people's principles and priorities to focusing and defining our own for sustainable and impactful leadership, be that in business, community, or family. And that, when you're impactful, you end up having authority to act according to your own convictions, like you did when you when you moved from social work to coaching. You now have the authority to do things that you didn't as a social worker, right? And you, when you're impactful, you tend to enjoy and you're empowered by your work. You have the confidence to set boundaries, internal and external. And half the time, when you set internal boundaries, the external boundaries take care of themselves. And it's just beautiful. I mean, it like eliminates conflict, but it also gives us the ability to facilitate change. I'll bet as a coach, you facilitate change better than you did as a social worker. Yeah?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and you feel fulfilled and understood. And this is the kind of work that I do, especially with women in the area. I back it all the way up so that they understand their core values. When you understand your core values, then your decisions are clearer. Because you can use your core values as filters or as guardrails, like on the road. And your boundaries are clearer. Your relationships are richer. All of that is because you're honoring your core values. And these are things that we're born with. These are the principles that we're born with. And when you can do that, that transforms someone from disempowered to impactful. And it's a beautiful process to watch.
And tell us a little bit more about your program. How would somebody be able to find you to go from your disempowered to impactful?
Well, like I said, I like to start with core values. Sometimes if I go into an organization, if somebody has a small team or something, I'll go in and I'll work with DISC first because it's a communication tool. It's behavioral analysis. It's easy to look at on a larger scale and it's concrete. Some people are not quite ready to go deep inside the first time you meet them. And so this helps to open the door for people to understand kind of how they communicate. And when they realize they're wired a certain way, then it's easier to go in and layer underneath that and say, now let's look a little deeper, because everything that we've done out here, we are taught that everything is about behavior, right? Everything, and all my answers are out here. I'm sure you saw that in social work. All my answers are out here. Somebody needs to give me, or it's somehow we need to give this person or something. And I'm not saying that we don't need to provide those kinds of services and answers, but the real answers are inside. And it doesn't mean I'm not one of those people that says, as soon as we have the answers, we're going to be millionaires. I think that's garbage. But I will say this, when we are willing to look inside, then we can do the work, right? As soon as we are willing to strip away the assumptions, the beliefs, take a look at our conditioning, then we're good to go. And so I have a free resource. If you go to my website, theintentionaloptimist.com, there's a button right above my head and it says free core values exercise. And it'll walk you through a preliminary way to kind of get started. Some people are good to go because there are some people who actually live in a way that honor their core values already. They just aren't intentional about it. And for those people, this might be enough. Additionally, on top of that, I actually have a core values course that it's like 4 or 5 modules, and it kind of walks you through the process at your pace. But some people need even more than that. As a matter of fact, I met this morning with a core values coaching client. So it's still in the early stages. It's not actually on my website yet because I'm still working out some of the kinks, but it is the most rewarding work that I do, because what happens is you walk through the course, and after each module, then you meet with me for an hour and we kind of back and forth it. And I'm a good sounding board. I just, every time I go into these coaching calls, I think, oh, am I going to be able to offer anything to her? And then they'll start talking, because what we do is we kind of brain dump and we look for all the different areas that could be something like a core value. And we kind of, before you meet with me, you narrow it down to about your top 10 or 15. And as we walk through them, I start putting them in buckets and I start asking questions and pushing back. And let me tell you, it is so fascinating when people go, oh, that's why I needed validation and nobody was giving me validation. I had no idea that validation was one of my core values. And then I get to coach a little bit too, because when you think of something like validation as a core value, that may feel like it's selfish. It may feel like it's self-centered, but core values are things that we don't just want for ourselves. They're reciprocal. If it's a core value, you want it for someone else too. So for me, critical thinking, autonomy of thought, that's my top core value. And so I don't, there are times it bothers me when people don't agree with me or people don't think like me, but I have to remind myself, well, they got there somehow, Andrea, you need to honor that. But I don't want anybody to tell me how to think. And that was part of my conflict being in a bigger organization, is that not only did they not want me to think outside the box, they really didn't want me to deploy any ideas I had from outside the box. So working through those things helps people get to a place. I've had several business owners who have taken their core values and turned them into their mission and vision for their business. So if you're a solopreneur, or you have a small team, then that's a really great resource for you.
Okay, I like it. I like it all. And how has the next, I say 10 years, what does it look like for you? Next 5 to 10 years of this coaching thing? Cause I feel the passion. So what does it look like for you in these next years to come?
Well, I also have a podcast, and it's really fun being able to talk to different people and to kind of that's where I kind of grow on my own. As I say, I'm learning myself and sharing more. But my dream is, like I said, I'm also a Maxwell speaker, trainer, coach, and I have a local leadership conference I'm doing here in the Charlottesville, Virginia area in October. And I am excited about the opportunity because I've just started, it's also on a website, a small mastermind group program where people work through my core values coaching or a mastermind with me and they go into that. I would love to see a large community of women who are meeting once or twice a month, maybe getting together once or twice a year in person, where we can lift each other up and help each other honor our core values and grow into really impactful leaders. Because truly, Yane, we are especially those y'all younger than me, you guys are your future, and you're the future leaders of this country. And my dream would be to have coached the next female president of the United States. That would be my dream. I mean, I say it and I get cold chills, but that would be so fascinating to have been a part of a journey of a woman who could step into something that powerful here in the United States. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm right with you with that. And being very impactful and trying to influence the next generation, because that's what I'm doing. So I definitely appreciate that from you. What is the name of, or do you have it up yet? The podcast name and that mastermind name, or are you just starting at the early stages now with that?
So the podcast is called Stand Tall and Own It, and it's not new. I have 185 episodes out, but it started out as Intentional Optimists, Unconventional Leaders, and I interviewed about 75 women, and then I did my own teaching. But what I got from those women was I made sure that I didn't just get typical looking leaders. I didn't get women in business suits. I got actresses. I got women who own local businesses or who have charities or started a school in Kenya, or just those kinds of things. Women who didn't necessarily see themselves as leaders, but saw themselves as called to do something. Because I want everybody listening to see themselves in someone, to know that they are a leader. So if you go to my back episodes, you're going to get some of that. But the newer episodes are, after doing that for 2 years, I realized it's time for me to stand tall and own some of these things. And so I'm tackling some things like adult ADHD. That's not mine, but I've had several clients going through that. What do we do with trauma response? How do we show up as leaders in the middle of it? All of that. So that's what my podcast is about. And it's available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, which is honestly where it's growing the most. It's like I have more listeners and more subscribers on YouTube, I think, than I do on Buzzsprout or Apple Podcasts. So as far as the membership mastermind program. It's called Empowered Leadership, and it's brand new. It's kind of by invitation only right now, but I have some free masterminds that I'm doing, walking through a book of John Maxwell's called The 15 Laws of Personal Growth. And I'll be doing another one of those in September of 2024. But you can just contact me if Andrea at The Intentional Optimist, or LinkedIn, contact me there, DM me and tell me you heard me here on this show, and say Yane sent me, and I'll know that you're not spamming me, and I will respond to you. Or Instagram, LinkedIn or Instagram are both really good places to find me. And if you're interested in something that's more of a monthly recurring thing, we'll look at books every so often, like leadership books. Some of them will be Maxwell. I've personally walked through Atomic Habits a few times with clients. So it'll be good stuff like that. And I have another woman that's said, can we do some retreats? I'm like, I'm open. I would love to do all of this and have some really good, what I would call fellowship, right? I come out of an evangelical community, so it's like I speak church language sometimes. So it's like some really good, like, women building up women in ways that we don't always get other places.
Nice. I love it all. As y'all listening audience, please support. Definitely, help the community, one human at a time. So that'd be awesome. So as we wrap up, I do ask my guests a couple of questions, and just please entertain me just for a little while. All right. So the first question is, what are some self-love tips you do to promote a healthy mindset?
Well, the first one is honoring my core values. And we have to be reminded to do that. Every client realizes that we are our own worst enemy when it comes to that. But the other thing is I do a little bit of meditation and yoga every night. And that helps me fall asleep because I'm an Enneagram 6. So my brain goes, what? And I can't shut it off. And that really helps me shut down and power down. And then in the morning I get up and I walk. So it's kind of those routines that really help me love myself well and remind myself that it's okay to make mistakes, but still keep going.
I agree. Meditation and affirmations are from my self-help tips. It works wonders. It really does. Mm-hmm. What would be one advice you would give your younger self?
It is okay to think for yourself. Your opinion matters. Your opinion is okay. It's okay if nobody else agrees with you. You don't have to fight to have it out there. You can just simply state it and walk away. It's okay.
I like that one. What is the best thing about life?
Other people. Relationships.
I like that one too.
Yeah, I have in intentional optimism, one of the things I say in one of the 6 tenets, I think it's being present, is people are always more important than ideas or principles or things or money. People are always more important. So if it comes down to a choice between a principle and an idea or a principle and a person, I'm always going to pick the person.
Yeah, definitely agree. What is your definition of the meaning of life?
To be able to live fully myself in a way that honors myself and is kind to other people.
All right. The last question is, if you had the power to change this world, and if you had the power to write a policy or a rule, right? What would you do and why?
Oh, my word. I try not to think that big. I mean, my girlfriend and I joke. We're like, if I could run the world, I think I would, if I could like wave a magic wand or wiggle my nose, like I dream of Genie, as I'm of that generation, wiggle my nose. I would help people see other people's perspectives. Because when we do that, it humanizes the other person and it makes us seem less important, but in a good way. And I think that's because I don't think you can write a policy. I think we try to write policies for things. And, what we need is to be able to see from the other side. And I think that's That's the hard part. So I would want to wave a magic wand or do my nose and and give everybody the opportunity and the ability to see somebody else's truly see from someone else's perspective.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. 100% empathy. That's the hardest thing to write as an innate core thing for you.
Yes.
You know, with empathy beyond sympathy, but to program somebody with empathy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. But yeah, one last thing. Is there anything you want to share? Any comments, something that I haven't asked that you would like to just put out there? Any last final word?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you say these kinds of things to your listeners all the time, but you're worth it, my sweet sister, and you are worthy and you bring the most unique, beautiful things to the table. And if you don't bring it to the table, we don't get it. And I think that's, I'm not big on like Thanksgiving or anything like that, but if you think about a big holiday meal and everybody's supposed to bring a special dish and somebody didn't show up with something special, it's missing. And it's bigger than that when we don't show up to the table with what we have to offer. And not everybody's going to appreciate what we have to offer, but we can find the people who will. And, work with people like me and Yane, because we're going to help find the people who will appreciate what you have to offer, because it's worth it. You're worth it.
That is it. Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate that. And hey, this is another episode of Relentless Phoenix, everyone. I hope you enjoy Kings and Queens. And remember, treat yourself as you wish others to treat you. All right. Peace out.